Hello there, and welcome back to White Eagle Speaks TV. And today on the show, we have Claudia Fox Tree from the Arawak Nation. We are at the Plug Pond Powwow in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And Claudia, thank you for joining White Eagle Speaks TV.
Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. So, Claudia, if you would like to tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Well, to begin with, this powwow is hosted by the Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness, and MCNAA is an organization whose board I am on. They have the board members and advisory and that, but everything's run volunteer. We have a very small budget, and this powwow has been going on for over 25 years. It is my favorite powwow. It's many people's favorite powwow, so that's pretty exciting. The Mass Center services Native American people all in Massachusetts, intertribal, cross-tribal, without federal funding. So we focus on arts, education, youth programs, and we do have some fuel, heating, and other kinds of assistance, as well as scholarships for Native youth to attend the state community colleges and programs in the area. As far as me personally, I've been a special education teacher for over 25 years in the public schools. I have also done teacher professional development and college level classes for about 20 years on what formerly was called multicultural education, is called culturally responsive teaching now. It falls in the same umbrella with focuses on how to teach about Native Americans, basically when you don't have Native American students and when you do, what's missing. So that's one of the complexities about education and being in the public sector, is that many schools don't have a lot of Native Americans, and yet everybody teaches about Native Americans, because that's how our history starts in the history that's taught in schools. Not that that's really where it starts, but that is where it does start, in the public schools. And you mentioned that I was the Arawak Nation, and a lot of times when I say that, I get questions of who are they or where are they from, and I love that question because it's the perfect segue into why we need to have education about Native American people, because you've probably heard of Christopher Columbus. Most people have, and when it's taught about him, we have the holiday, we have that event, schools aren't in session, people talk about it, there's all this recognition of Christopher Columbus meeting the Indians, or maybe Indian people greeting Columbus, and I'm putting that in quotes because Indian isn't necessarily the word that I would use. And the problem is that it was Arawak people. It was the Arawak language group. It was all nations who spoke Arawak, who were from that area. Sometimes people will say it's the Taino people, and it's true, there were Taino people. They lived in Puerto Rico, though he didn't land there. You know, he landed in Haiti and the DR first, and then he went away and came back. But that process of not having the full story or having misinformation is part of the problems that is presented to Native youth today. Because of course Native youth are then internalizing, oh, we didn't do anything, we weren't important, our name is never heard. You know, kids who grew up Arawak don't know that we had this significant role in history. And when you don't have people who are in positions of political or social power, or in movies or in literature, you don't know that anybody like you can do those things, and maybe you're only seen as the stereotypical things, and you can only envision that in your future. And the problem isn't just how Native youth internalize those kinds of stereotypes, the misinformation and the inaccurate stories about their people. The problem is also that the non-Native youth internalize those same messages, that you're no good and you can't really do anything and there's nothing to fight for, and aren't they all dead, or you don't look real, and all these other kinds of stereotypes. So undoing that misinformation is a real important part of education, as well as keeping our culture and education programs alive in some way, so that Native youth, who then sometimes become adults who haven't been connected to the culture, have a place to go when they're ready to come back to the circle.
Nice. All right. So with the Arawak Nation, because me myself, I never heard of it, which is, you know, and I would like to find out more about the Arawak Nation. Okay, their language, and where are they from?
So the Arawak Nation spreads from the northern part of South America through the entire Caribbean into the Florida area. And once Columbus came to the Caribbean islands, and we knew what he was doing, which was murdering, raping, stealing land, and enslaving people and bringing them back to England, and then later enslaving people on the islands for sugarcane plantations, which is what the Caribbean eventually was known for as he started the international slave trade with stealing people from Africa. At that point, my ancestors started to not to escape. It's not like they come around and say, I'm over here. So people went to the mountains, people went to other islands, people went to, maybe joined other nations, but, they got out of there because the writing was on the wall. Some people even committed suicide, and that's in addition to the mass massacres that Columbus did. If you want to learn more about the Arawak, it's the first chapter in Howard Zinn's People History of the United States, because it's the first nation that had contact with Europeans that is documented. And you can also learn more about it by reading Devastation of the Indies, a brief account by Bartolome de las Casas. He was the bishop who was on the ships with Columbus. And while we don't have Columbus's journals, we have Las Casas's first-hand account of having read the journals and seen the atrocities. So there's also primary sources in terms of block prints that were, because wood was carved and that's how it was printed in newspapers back in Spain and England and that kind of thing, about the stereotypical images of Native people. So there might have been pictures of people whose heads were gone, it was only their shoulders and their faces were on their chest, to try to represent Native people as savage and not quite human, because if you're not human, then you can be oppressed because you must be evil or dangerous, or you're not human, so other things can be done to you. So you can see the political way that the contact with Native people has been transformed in those woodcuts. So there's a lot of documentation on that front. There's many Arawak words that are in the English language. Of course, it was first contact. So while the words may not have been Arawak to begin with, when we traded and got things, we then introduced them to the Spanish with the words we knew. So those are things like canoe, hammock, cigar, maize. Those words are all Arawak in origin. Hurricane, and hurricanes only exist in the Caribbean area. Those kinds of storms that formed over water have different names in different parts of the world. They're called cyclones or typhoons, but in the Caribbean they're called hurricane. That was the Arawak word for that wind spirit. And then there's the Arawak language that I was just talking with someone earlier who said they know their Arawak words, they know all the swear words, and I don't know the swear words, but I know all the words from the songs, because the songs are what were taught to me, so I know words from the songs that I was taught. There are some programs working on resurgence of the language as well, like many nations are trying to do these days.
Okay, nice. See, very interesting. I mean, this is, Oyate speaks that, we travel around and meet very interesting people. I'd like to know, you're talking about Mass Center for Awareness, okay, and the youth, okay. How are they helping the youth? Through culture, through language, their teachings. I know you have a powwow.
So because we're intertribal, we don't promote one particular nation or one particular language. We try to offer opportunities to educate any youth who come. Some of that happens at powwows by having programs for children. It could be storytelling, because of course stories are oral tradition, so they are the most important pieces of behavior and history and how to treat other people distilled down to stories. So there's the storytelling, which is children of all ages, as you know. There's also pottery and clay working, or making corn husk dolls. We have the native games that get brought to powwows, or all these other kinds of things geared at younger children. Of course, anybody can do them, but geared to younger folks at the powwows. And in the past, we've done larger events like retreats where youth could learn songs and dancing or build regalia, and we're hoping to bring that up. We're looking for, we're very close to finding a location and making a resurgence of some of those programs, and then we will have native craft people and facilitators come in from and do things, anything from how to write a good college essay to how to make your regalia. So we're hoping to offer a wide range of those kinds of workshops. There are other things that we have in mind, maybe a conference for youth that youth could run about issues in the Native community. We envision many places that we could go with it, again, in an intertribal level and with a focus on arts and education, which is part of our mission.
So intertribal, which
yes.
That's very good, and that means, like, say somebody who's from the West, right, and they want to come over here and they can participate.
Yes, absolutely. We service all the Native Americans that would wish to come that are in the Massachusetts area. It isn't just Wampanoag or Micmac or Nipmuc or Mohegan. While all those are Narragansett, everybody's close by, they can all come. And I think a lot of events on the East Coast tend to be more of the intertribal variety. So we're very open to that, and we need a place to bring the communities together, because one of the legacies of the oppression that we felt in the United States as a people is that we've been separated and moved from our original places and put together with other nations on reservations and lost contact with the exact land and place where our ancestors learned the stories and found the clay and ate the food. So when we come together, it's a chance to come back to a native culture. It might not be exactly Arawak. I mean, we're not even from this area, but it is a native culture with a lot of the basic pieces of connecting with the land and spirituality that is pretty consistent across nations, still embedded there, even if we have variations.
Okay, and elders.
And elders, yes. Well, we have a few places that we honor our elders regularly. We have an anniversary celebration for the center it's in April, sometimes depending on when other holidays fit. It's in March. The anniversary is actually in April, but we have an event, and we always pick a couple of elders in the community who have been fabulous role models and honored the center and the people who have come to the center in different ways. And so we like to highlight those folks, and then we write about it in our newsletter, which gets published 4 times a year, as well as that elders and other people within the community contribute to the newsletter. And as it works out, we also do some not so native things, still dancing, but it's like oldies dancing, because we have a substantial group of people who like to do dancing to 50s music, and some elders who sing the 50s songs. So there's opportunities for them to get up there and do some crooning of 50 songs. So we try to honor the elders in that way. And then we also have the financial assistance for heating and sometimes for other things that might happen in the wintertime, because it gets kind of cold and snowy here. Yeah. So we do have some assistance like that for the elders, and then the scholarships for students.
Okay, like scholarships mean?
College. Or certified program.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Good. Also, the Plug Pond Paddle we're at today, beautiful day. I'd like to speak about your regalia, what you're wearing,
Sure. So my regalia, I did not spin this cotton. However, some people don't know that many Native people did have cotton. We might not have had other kinds of animals. I mean, we certainly on the islands didn't have buffalo on the island, right? We did have deer and manatee and other large game like that, but we had cotton. And when Columbus first came, he was sort of confused because the strands were so much longer that he thought it was silk, and he had made it to China, and it took him a while to figure out his confusion. So that cotton, of course, had been used by the Maya and the Inca people. They still do a lot of weaving, and so did the Arawak people. So I have a plain cotton dress here that my friend and I decorated with other colored threads. And what this is representing is the season. So the leaves go from the light green of of buds to the green of summer, and then they change in the fall, and then they come off. So it's the entire medicine wheel of the 4 directions around it. And then this symbol here is a woman from my nation who is part woman and part frog. Her name is, this symbol is Kagwana, because that's where it was found carved in a ceremonial ball court. However, her general name is Atabe or Atabeira, and she's the Mother Earth symbol. And on the back of the regalia, I have a turtle.
Oh, wow.
And the ocean waves around it, because across many nations the turtle represents the earth as well, with it being the earth on top of the water where humans first became created, and we say the Earth Mother, and there's 13 plates on every turtle, and those 13 plates represent the moons, and because there's 13 moons in a year. Some months have 2, that's why we call it a blue moon. So I tried to, when I designed the regalia, I wanted the simpleness of what somebody from my ancestors would have worn, and it brought into a contemporary era. Although married women might only wear from my waist down, that wouldn't really work here in New England, so I have a little bit more. I also have the parrot feathers from a blue front Amazon, which would be common bird in the forests of the islands, and in these seeds. Now I've forgotten the name, but these are not glass, they're seeds, and so these 3 different types of seeds would be from trees from my ancestral area as well. I think that is about the main things. These are the seeds as well on my wrist. Oh, and it just so sometimes I do have leather things from the nations because I've lived here and people gift me things, and this was actually a gift, this long strand of leather for one of my major birthdays, where everybody wrote a little wish for me on it, and so I decided to wear it today because my birthday was earlier this month, and it has the wishes of everybody written on them. So a lot of the regalia that you see people wear is very symbolic to them. Some of this will be passed on, some is passed on from generations, and even if it's just pieces of it that are cut and sewn into a pouch or a patch or whatever, and there is meaning and symbolism in many aspects of regalia, from the fabric to the color to the designs to where it's placed. I mean, anything can be meaningful to individuals or representative of their clan or nation.
So that's another question. The Arawak, do they have clans, or do they what?
You know, I don't have any contact with that specific piece of my nation. They probably did, but you know, we had 500 years of people messing with our system. I can tell you that many people add the piece of the island where their ancestors are from with the original name of the island. So, like, somebody who knows they're from Europe won't necessarily say, well, I'm European. They might say, you know, I'm from Europe, I'm Irish from, or let me try German. I'm German from the Berlin, you know, so they get more specific. I like to pick on the Germans because my mother is German and my father's Arawak. Ich habe eine deutsche Mutter, that's my first language. So I'm Arawak from Uramen because Uramen is my ancestor's name for St. Vincent. So that's the reservation that my grandparents were on.
Okay. Oh, okay. Nice, nice. So, is there, where can they, if people, the public want to know more information about the Mass Center Awareness, where can they go to find this? Sure.
The Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness has a website. It's mcnaa.org. So it's pretty easy. It's the initials of the Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness.org. And on there are listed our speakers, because I'm on that list, and the powwows and all the other events we have going on, as well as the assistance programs. And we have our newsletter that we send out to the membership. So you can pay a small fee and become a member. It helps the organization, and you then have access to other services.
Oh, nice, nice. All right, so today we have Claudia Fox Tree, and it was a a big honor and pleasure to have you on Whitey Speaks TV. And we're at Plug Pond Powwow, hosted by the Massachusetts Center of Awareness. Did I get that right?
Massachusetts Center for Native American
Native
Awareness.
American Awareness. So